The grand hall was decorated with golden balloons, shimmering lights, and a cake taller than a child. It was the birthday of the CEO's only daughter, paralyzed since birth, but still full of dreams. Yet as the candles flickered, the seats remained empty. No classmates, no neighbors, not even family friends. She sat in her wheelchair, staring at the door, waiting for someone, anyone. Just as her eyes filled with tears, a soft voice broke the silence. A young boy with torn shoes and a shy smile stood at the entrance. He whispered gently, "Can I?" And in that single question began a story no one could have ever imagined. The CEO was a man known in every corner of the city. His name echoed in business circles. Magazines wrote about his empire, and employees spoke his name with both respect and fear. He had everything: wealth, power, influence. Yet behind the tall glass walls of his mansion lay a truth few ever saw. His daughter, Emily. Emily had been paralyzed since birth. Doctors had said she might never walk and perhaps never live a life like other children. But to her father, she was the beating heart of his existence. He built her a room filled with books, toys, and paintings. He gave her the best wheelchairs, therapists, and care that money could buy. Yet what Emily longed for most was something money could never provide: friendship. At school, Emily's condition made her different. While other children played tag and ran across the playground, she sat watching, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes following their laughter. Many children, too young to understand, stayed away. Some were even cruel, whispering words that pierced her heart more deeply than any illness ever could. By the time her 9th birthday approached, she had grown used to the silence that followed her in the halls. Her father, however, refused to give up. "This year will be different," he promised her. He spared no expense, ordering a cake so tall it looked like a tower of sugar, hiring musicians to play soft melodies, and filling the hall with lights that sparkled like stars. Invitations were sent to every classmate, every neighbor, every child they knew. Emily smiled when she saw the colorful envelopes leave the house. She dreamed of laughter, of voices, of children singing happy birthday together. But when the day arrived, the hall stood silent. The chandeliers glistened, the balloons floated gently in the air, and the giant cake stood untouched. Emily sat in her wheelchair at the center, a golden crown resting on her soft brown hair, her hands trembling with anticipation. Her father paced near the door, checking his watch, telling himself, "They will come. They must come." Minutes passed, then an hour. The hall remained empty. Emily tried to keep her smile, but her lips quivered. She glanced at her father, who hid his disappointment behind a forced grin. "Maybe they're just late," he said softly, though his eyes betrayed the truth. The little girl lowered her gaze, staring at the candles on the cake. She whispered, barely audible, "Daddy, maybe no one wants to come." Her words shattered him more than any business loss ever could. He had conquered markets, defeated rivals, but he could not win his daughter the one gift she wanted most: a friend. And just as the silence threatened to drown the evening completely, the doors creaked open. A small figure appeared, a boy, skin dark, clothes worn, shoes patched from use. He did not belong to the glittering world of chandeliers and marble floors. Yet his eyes held something no one else had brought that day: kindness. He stepped forward, his voice quiet, almost trembling. "Can I?" The boy's voice was soft, almost uncertain, as though he wasn't sure if he even belonged there. Emily lifted her eyes from the floor. For a moment she thought she was imagining him. No one had come all day, and suddenly there he was, a stranger, standing at the grand doors of her lonely birthday hall. Her father stepped forward, puzzled. The boy was clearly not on the guest list. His shirt was faded, his shoes worn thin. He carried no gift, no envelope, nothing that a wealthy household might expect. Yet there was a gentleness in his gaze that made Emily's heart stir. "Who are you?" the CEO asked, his voice sharp but curious. The boy looked down nervously. "My name is Daniel," he said. I saw the balloons from outside. I heard the music, and I thought, maybe I could come, just to wish her." He glanced toward Emily, his eyes meeting hers for the first time. "If it's okay?" Emily's lips parted. For the first time that day, her eyes shone. not with tears, but with hope. She nodded eagerly, whispering, yes. This was not how he had imagined the evening. He had wanted her classmates, children from their world, to fill the hall. Yet as he looked at his daughter's glowing face, he realized perhaps this uninvited guest was exactly who she needed. He stepped aside, allowing Daniel in. The boy walked shyly into the glittering room. He marveled at the chandeliers, the giant cake, the piles of unopened party favors. But he didn't linger. His steps carried him directly to Emily's side. "Happy birthday," he said softly, holding out his hand. Emily hesitated, then slowly reached out her own. Her fingers trembled, but when they touched his, something extraordinary happened. For the first time in her life, she felt seen, not as the girl in the wheelchair, not as the CEO's daughter, but as a child who simply deserved a friend. The room, once hollow and empty, began to change. The music that had played in the background suddenly felt alive. Daniel asked if he could sit beside her, and when she nodded, he pulled a chair and settled down. "Do you like stories?" he asked. Emily's face lit up. "I love them." And so he began. He told her about the little adventures of his neighborhood, about climbing trees, chasing stray cats, and the silly games he played with other kids in the street. Emily laughed, a real unrestrained laugh that echoed through the empty hall. Her father froze in place, his eyes glistening. He had not heard that sound in months. The candles on the cake flickered, waiting to be blown. Daniel noticed. "Aren't you going to make a wish?" he asked. Emily bit her lip. "I don't know if wishes come true," she whispered. "Maybe they do," Daniel said firmly, "but only if you believe in them." Her eyes softened. She closed them, her hands clasped together. A single tear slid down her cheek as she whispered her wish silently to herself. When she opened her eyes, Daniel was smiling at her, as though he already knew. And then something even more magical happened. Slowly, the sound of footsteps echoed in the hall. One by one, other children began to appear. Curious classmates who had ignored the invitation, neighbors who had hesitated to come. Drawn by the laughter they had never heard from Emily before, they peeked inside. At first, they lingered by the door, unsure. But Daniel turned, waved at them, and said warmly, "Come on, it's a party." To Emily's astonishment, they stepped forward. Within minutes, the once empty hall was alive with voices, music, and laughter. Children gathered around the cake, balloons bounced into the air, and Emily, still in her chair, was at the center of it all, smiling brighter than ever before. Her father, watching from a distance, felt his heart swell. All his wealth, all his planning had failed. But a single boy with nothing but kindness had given his daughter what he could not, a moment of true belonging. The hall that had once felt like a prison of silence was now alive, glowing with voices, music, and laughter. But for Emily, the world had shrunk to the boy sitting beside her. Daniel. He was the one who had changed everything. Children gathered around her, some shy, some curious. They weren't sure what to say to the CEO's paralyzed daughter, but Daniel broke the barrier effortlessly. "Hey everyone," he said cheerfully, "this is Emily, and today's her special day, so who's ready to play a game with her?" The children hesitated for a moment. Play a game? With a girl in a wheelchair? They didn't know how, but Daniel stood up, clapped his hands, and suggested a simple riddle game. He explained the rules quickly. Whoever answered right got a balloon. Emily's eyes sparkled. For the first time, she wasn't watching from the side. She was part of the center. The riddles began. Daniel asked. Emily laughed at the silly answers, and one by one, the other children joined in. Every time Emily giggled, her father's heart shook. He leaned against the wall, his vision blurring with unshed tears. For years, he had prayed to see that joy on her face. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. The cake. The lights dimmed and the candles flickered brighter. Emily stared at the tall cake, its candles glowing like little stars. For years, she had dreaded birthdays, knowing no one came, no one cared. But tonight was different. Tonight, she wasn't alone. Daniel leaned close and whispered, "Don't forget your wish." Emily closed her eyes. Her hands trembled on the armrest of her wheelchair as her lips moved silently. "I wish for a friend who never leaves." She blew. The flames danced, then vanished into the darkness, leaving only smoke and hope in the air. The room erupted with cheers. "Happy birthday, Emily!" Children shouted, their voices echoing like a chorus of angels. Her father clapped, but deep inside he was no longer the powerful CEO. He was just a father watching his little girl finally. Because as the cake was cut and pieces handed out, Emily suddenly leaned toward Daniel and asked, "Why did you really come here? You don't know me. You don't even live near us, do you?" Daniel paused. For a moment, his cheerful mask slipped. He looked down at his worn shoes, his fingers tightening around the plastic fork. "You're right," he admitted softly. "I don't live here. I live not too far, but not close either. I don't have much. Actually," he hesitated, his throat tightening, "I don't even know when my last birthday was. Nobody remembers it." The room grew quiet. Children glanced at one another, and Emily felt her heart ache. Daniel forced a smile. "But when I saw the balloons outside, I thought, maybe tonight I could celebrate someone else's birthday. Maybe I could feel like I belonged, even for a little while." Emily's eyes filled with tears, not for herself, but for him. She reached out and held his hand tightly. "You belong here, Daniel. You gave me the best birthday I've ever had." Her father, unable to hold back anymore, stepped forward. He placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "Son, you've done something tonight that no amount of money ever could. You gave my daughter happiness, and for that, you'll always have a place in this family." The boy's lips trembled. He had never heard words like that before. His own family was gone, lost to hardships he never shared. But tonight, in this grand hall filled with light, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Home. Emily squeezed his hand again and whispered, "Do you know what my wish was?" Daniel shook his head. She smiled through her tears. "I wished for a friend who never leaves, and I think it came true." At that moment, the hall seemed to shimmer with magic. The candles were gone, the cake half-eaten, but the memory was sealed forever. Daniel hadn't just attended a birthday, he had rewritten a girl's story of loneliness into one of joy, hope, and everlasting friendship. The night had nearly ended. The golden balloons sagged slightly. The laughter had softened, and the cake stood half-finished on the long white table. Yet the glow inside the hall felt brighter than ever. Emily sat in her wheelchair, her cheeks pink from smiling too much. She kept glancing at Daniel as if making sure he wouldn't suddenly vanish. Her father, Mr. Reynolds, the powerful CEO everyone feared in the boardroom, sat quietly on the floor beside the children, watching them play charades. He wasn't thinking about profits, contracts, or meetings. For the first time in years, he was just a dad. But deep down, his heart carried a heavy weight. He couldn't shake Daniel's words. "I don't even know when my last birthday was. Nobody remembers it." When the children began to leave, their parents arriving to collect them, Mr. Reynolds called Daniel aside. "Daniel," he said gently, kneeling so their eyes met, "do you have anyone waiting for you at home?" Daniel hesitated. His lips trembled, but he shook his head. "No, it's just me. I live with a neighbor sometimes, but most nights I'm on my own." The CEO's chest tightened. He looked at Emily, who was now dozing in her chair, still clutching a balloon as though it were the most precious treasure in the world. Then he turned back to Daniel. "You know," Mr. Reynolds said, voice thick with emotion, "tonight you gave my daughter something I never could. Friends, joy, a memory worth holding on to. I can't let you walk back into loneliness after what you've done for us." Daniel looked confused. "What do you mean, sir?" Mr. Reynolds placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "I mean you have a home here, Daniel. If you'll accept it, you'll never have to wonder again if someone remembers your birthday, because from now on, we'll celebrate it together." Daniel's eyes widened, his body frozen. The words felt unreal, like a dream too fragile to touch. You mean I could stay?" Mr. Reynolds nodded firmly. "Not as charity, not out of pity, but as part of this family. My daughter needs a friend like you, and I think you need us too." Tears spilled down Daniel's face, hot and unrelenting. He had endured hunger, rejection, and nights of silence, but no moment had ever broken him like this. Not in sadness, but in overwhelming relief. Emily, half asleep, stirred and whispered, "Daddy, is Daniel my brother now?" The CEO smiled through his own tears. "Yes, sweetheart, if he wants to be." Daniel dropped to his knees beside her wheelchair, holding her hand as if it were the most sacred thing in the world. "Yes," he whispered, "I'll be your brother. Always." The room fell silent, as if even the walls were listening to this promise. The faint glow of the chandelier above reflected in their eyes and sealing the bond that neither time nor hardship could break. From that night forward, Emily's birthday was never empty again, and Daniel, once just a lonely boy outside the gates,